The Scum Villain Self-Saving System. Extra Chapter. Airplane's Fortuitous Encounter, Part 4. Of course, the reason an urge was because it could usually be checked, and could not be carried out. Not even removing his boots, Mo Beijun laid down on his brand new, not once slept on bed. Xiāng Tóngxiù felt incomparably sick at heart. My king, this is Xiāng Mountain. A pillow full of strong destructive power flew over, striking Xiāng Tóngxiù and making him grimace in pain. Xiāng Tóngxiù picked up the pillow, saying tactfully, "My king, this is my bed." Mo Beijun stuck up a finger and waved it at him. Noble and cool, he said one word, "Mine." Understood. Because his whole person belonged to Mo Beijun, his things also belonged to Mo Beijun. Naturally, his bed also belonged to Mo Beijun. And as for the reverse, did it stand? At this time, the fat tiger theory should be applied: what's yours is mine, what's mine is still mine. Xiāng Tóngxiù resentfully rolled off the chair and silently went to pick up the broken pieces of the teacup at his feet. He began to hum a little tune of "I lie on the ground while you sleep on a bed, I eat radish husks and you drink meat soup," while tidying up his new room. At least he had been kindly bestowed a single pillow for himself. Before, he didn't even have a pillow. Content with his situation, he hugged it and slept. Might as well retire. Today, Xiāng Tóngxiù was also as hard-working as a happy little honeybee. Mo Beijun slept in the leisure house for 3 days, then disappeared without a word. With this, Xiāng Tóngxiù finally got the full experience of how unscientific the halo he had given Mo Beijun was. 3 days. In 3 days, there was no warning raised, no suspicion, no nothing. Not a single person had found out. A demon had strutted all the way up to stay on Anding Peak and ordered about a future elite, logistics, disciple as his own beast of burden. Like a freed surf singing a song, Xiāng Tóngxiù felt quite the wave of thrill for a while, right up until he received the next mission from the old Anding Peak Lord. Even though Anding Peak's missions were only the miscellaneous day-to-day task, the difference was only in whether you fought in the rear or struggled on the front lines. But the closer one was to dangerous organisms, it was inevitably stressful and frightening. For example, rushing up to deliver blood-replenishing talismans and pills when Baijian Peak was in the thick of battle with resentful spirits. This type of mission was cruel and frightful no matter how you looked at it. At least Mo Beijun was very good at protecting people. Xiāng Tóngxiù thought he had already tossed him to the back of his mind. He never expected that many times when he had fallen into dire straits, he would be fished up in passing by some strange creatures who appeared demonic any way you looked at them, saving his little life. This really counted as "hang out with me, and I'll protect you," right? Xiāng Tóngxiù couldn't resist thinking that hugging thighs or whatever, it was quite useful and extremely necessary. Or else there was no way he could have survived until today. And while it was at it, the concise and comprehensive system grandiosely passed a new mission to Xiāng Tóngxiù. Become the Anding Peak head disciple within 3 years. Other than running missions outside and having to give a good showing under Mo Beijun's care, if he wanted to become head disciple, he also had to pay more than a little attention to what's happening within Xiāng Mountain. As everyone knew, all the supporting cannon fodder in proud immortal Demon Way only had an IQ of 40. Therefore, the so-called palace intrigue just reached about this type of degree. So, the old Anding Peak Lord already had head disciple A who was outstanding to the max. Outstanding equals serving tea, taking water, washing clothes, folding blankets, all kinds of mastery could be rated as a dab hand in the housekeeping service center. Every now and then, the old Peak Lord would request head disciple A to make 12 delicious flat cakes and send one to each peak. All Xiāng Tóngxiù needed to do was stealthily scatter a ton of salt or sugar on each flat cake that head disciple A meticulously made to make them completely unpalatable each time. And repeat the above process 3 times until the old Peak Lord finally lost all hope in his head disciple. Think about it, if he couldn't even make a good flat cake, what else could he do? At this time, if Xiāng Tóngxiù displayed his expert culinary skills a few more times, he could successfully ascend. It's precisely that so-called not enough IQ, Tsukumai points came together. If you can't do the best, then do the worst. If the plotline was stupid enough to make the readers roast it like crazy, it's also a kind of success. These types of plotlines were too numerous to count in proud immortal demon way. The grand occasions when readers would flock together year-round to spew could be said to be one of the great spectacles of the Zhongdian Reviews section. And the one who spewed the hardest was precisely that peerless cucumber. Thinking of this, Xiāng Tóngxiù couldn't resist feeling a bit nostalgic for those young companions and this dear friend from the review sections. He really missed his gleeful and inexhaustible howls of airplane shooting towards the sky. It's exactly because you have this type of ideology that you're only a third-rate stallion writer. What a heroic disposition! However, as the Ending Peak head disciple, his worries would only increase, not decrease. For example, when he was an outer disciple, he would never have the chance to descend the mountain on missions with Shen Qingshu and Lu Qingge. How many fucking lives of disastrous fate must he have lived to draw this special prize? Qingqiang Mountain emphasized maintaining kinship between peers to the utmost. It was common for several head disciples to head out together on tasks at regular intervals. This time, the division of labor between the three was also very clear. Lu Qingge was the hired thug on the vanguard. Shen Qingshu was the center, in charge of feigning civility, sneak attacks, and snarky retorts, as well as waving his fan and being pretentious. Cross that all out. And Xiāng Tóngxiù? Of course, he was in charge of driving the cart, making in reservations, carrying luggage, as well as tallying all the income and expenses of this trip. Logistics, right? It would be great if he really was let off so easy. It's said that at night, if you stick out your head and look into the mouth of that well, you'll see your reflection inside looking up, smiling faintly and beckoning. Out of nowhere, it will drag people inside to drown. Sometimes you'll even see your dead relatives, cough cough, Shen Shixing and Lu Shidi. Can you let me finish first? Xiāng Tóngxiù set down the scroll. Shen Qingshu pulled out a book from his sleeve in one move. He could act pretentious on his own anywhere and anytime, sitting or standing, and right now he was leaning on that old banyan shade tree, displaying that he had the magnificent essence of the Book of Songs and the Book of History emanating from within. And Lu Qingge had long gone to stand by the mouth of the well, sticking out his head to look inside. Lu Qingge wanted to use a blitzkrieg strategy to avoid having to keep getting along with Shen Qingshu this whole trip, while Shen Qingshu wanted to let Lu Qingge do all the hard work so he could get lost a bit earlier. Neither one wanted to disgust himself by getting close to the other. Each had their own plans and not a single person was listening to his wholehearted conscientious explanation of the mission. Lu Qingge lifted his head and said, "There's nothing there." Xiāng Tóngxiù understood. He meant my reflection didn't smile faintly at me and beckon. He spread his hands and said, how about we have Shen Shixing come over and try? Shen Qingshu put away his book, swapping it for a folding fan. He strolled over to the side of the well. "I'll trouble you to allow me." Lu Qingge had long allowed him 10 or so steps. Shen Qingshu carelessly took a look in the well but also seemed to get no results. Xiāng Tóngxiù flicked the scroll, pages rustling. "It's really strange," this clearly said. The sad thing was, no matter how hard he rustled the pages, he couldn't cover Shen Qingshu's malicious voice. "We have all tried. Isn't it your turn?" Sure enough, in this world, even the monsters feared the strong and bullied the weak. When the other two looked, they didn't see a damn thing, but when it was Xiāng Tóngxiù's turn, only he could see his own reflection coquettishly beckoning its hand. Lu Qingge didn't say a second word and slapped his sword hilt. Changluan flew out of its sheath, rushing into the well water in a rainbow of power. After a moment of silence, the tranquil surface of the well began to churn and bubble. Xiāng Tóngxiù discreetly retreated a step, then another, pulling back to a safe distance. He only heard a burst of ghostly wailing, then a huge wad of wispy spirit spurted out of the well, rushing into the sky. Lu Qingge smashed apart the clump of women's heads chasing and biting him. Retreat. By convention, once the fighting started, any Nding Peak disciples not in charge of replenishing supplies should scram far away and hang around anywhere cool. Unfortunately, Xiāng Tóngxiù had miscalculated and did not scram far enough away. His advance and retreat were both blocked off by the resentful spirit, which dispersed into a white haze. Now that things had gotten to this point, he could only break out his special ability. Eyes rolled back in his head, and he collapsed on the spot. Playing dead had time and time again proven to be an effective trick. In the chaos of battle, Lu Qingge and Shen Qingqiu accidentally pressed their backs together. The two simultaneously showed a look of revulsion. Shen Qingqiu already shot back in attack, brushing by Lu Qingge's shoulder as it passed. Lu Qingge was angered by this and immediately also returned a blow. Everything's going great now, the whole of their combat force was completely ignoring the enemy to fight among themselves. Shen Qingqiu scolded, "Are you blind? Where are you hitting?" Lu Qingge wasn't any more courteous than him. Who hit first? Who was blind first? Xiāng Tóngxiù lay on the ground, eyes still rolled back. He could see clearly just then there was a faint white strip of shadow diagonally above Lu Qingge. Shen Qingqiu's attack had passed by Lu Qingge's shoulder, dispersing it. As he watched, the blows that the two rained down on each other grew bigger and bigger, their eyes nearly red with bloodlust. He couldn't even bother to play dead anymore, so he sat up and shouted weakly, "Guys, stop arguing. Lu Shidi, you misunderstood." In fact, just then Shen Shixing was. Shen Qingqiu flung out his hand and a few deep cracks were smashed into the wall by Xiāng Tóngxiu's head, ash and pebbles streaming down. Shen Qingqiu said coldly, "If want to play dead to the end. Don't get up halfway." Xiāng Tóngxiu didn't say another word, he collapsed and continued to contentedly play a corpse. They sealed the well creature and all the resentful spirits it had collected in a retrieval vessel, not missing a single one. Xiāng Tóngxiù led over the horse cart. Not sparing them a single glance, Lu Qingge took off onto a different road. Xiāng Tóngxiù asked hurriedly, "Lu Shidi, where are you going?" Lu Qingge snorted. "I will not journey together with a backstabbing comrade." Shen Qingqiu clapped his hands and smiled. "That's very good, I also do not want to journey together with someone with strength but no brains. Xiāng Shidi, let's go." He pinched Xiāng Tóngxiu's shoulder, and Xiāng Tóngxiu squeaked an agreement through clenched teeth in pain. Finally struggling free of his evil clutches, he chased up to Lu Qingge and cautioned him, "Lu Shidi, Shixing has a word of advice to offer. Do not cultivate by yourself all the time. You might suffer a chi deviation." Lu Qingge still hadn't responded when on the other side, Shen Qingqiu used the base of his fan to knock on the beams of the cart. Xiāng Tóngxiu hurried back. The whole way, he drove the cart while watching Shen Qingqiu closely. Shen Qingqiu was leaning on the side of the carriage reading a book, but under his stare, Shen Qingqiu's expression grew darker and darker. Squinting his eyes, he said, "What are you looking at me for?" Xiāng Tóngxiu said timidly, "Shen Shixing, the fact is, I didn't want to remind you. But since you are asking me so sincerely, then you are holding your book upside down." Shen Qingqiu's face reddened in a split second, and he suddenly rose and drew his sword. No, don't do anything rash. Shen Qingqiu, this guy had the thinnest face. If you tore down his stage in front of his face, he would remember you for a lifetime. Xiāng Tóngxiu was regretting his slip of the tongue a bit. But, for a person like Shen Qingqiu who had mastered the art of pretension to the point of perfection to hold his book upside down, it looked like he really was seriously angered just then. Alright, he had gone to all the trouble to do a good thing, but the result didn't meet expectations. If it didn't meet expectations, just go out and tell Lu Qingge, "I only wanted to help you out just then," but he wasn't willing to do it. "If you're not willing, just let me help you explain," but he couldn't tear down his face, maybe he was embarrassed. This person really was full of contradictions, always tormenting himself. Shen Qingkai stared at him with a snake's gaze, and cold sweat flowed down Xiāng Qinghua's back. After a while, Shen Qingkai finally sat back down, resheathing his sword. He composed himself with great effort, then said with a skin-deep smile, "Xiāng Qinghua, shut up, all right." Xiāng Qinghua's heart itched and found it difficult to endure. He raised a hand and said, "Can I say one more thing?" Shen Qingkai rubbed his temple with his right hand. He lifted his chin to indicate permission to speak. Xiāng Qinghua looked at him earnestly and spoke the most meaningful and heartfelt series of words he had spoken since an electric current drew him into proud immortal Demon Way universe. If in the future, you see someone going through chi deviation, do not panic and do not rashly go up thinking you can save them. You must stay calm and go call for help. Do not do anything yourself. Or else, you will definitely be more of a hindrance than a help. Poke a big hole in the basket, and abandon yourself to despair from then on, unable to free yourself for the rest of your life that not even jumping into the Yellow River could wash you clean. Shen Qingkai was mystified. If someone else is going into chi deviation, what does that have to do with me? Why would I panic? Why would I want to help? Xiāng Qinghua had a face full of "I knew it would be this type of response" and just said, "Either way, just make sure you remember." Once Xiāng Qinghua became the Peak Lord, he finally didn't need to be a blatantly bow and scrape and hug the ground anymore. A busy life was still a busy life, but at least he had been promoted from roughly treated servant girl to chief inner head steward. It counted as rapid process on long steps. He heard that the master on Qingjing Peak that one couldn't afford to offend had been ill. After he recovered, a secret meeting was held quietly on Qiangding Peak. Qiangding Peak Side Hall. Of the 12 Peak Lords, 11 were present and accounted for. Yu Qingyuan spoke with fixed concentration, "Do you feel that King Qingkai has been very odd these past few days?" Several Peak Lords agreed, one by one. Lu Qingge said solemnly, "More than just odd." Qi Qingqi muttered, "He's practically a whole different person." Just at this time, Xiāng Qinghua stepped into the side hall, still dusty and windblown from travel. For the past few years, Qiancao Peak's dragon bone melon seeds had been selling quite well on the outside, and he had already spent several months rushing about on sales trips. He had been mysteriously dragged into this meeting as soon as he got back and he still did not quite understand the situation. He rubbed his hands and said, "This. I have not seen Shen Shixing for some days. Could everyone please elaborate how exactly he's been odd?" Yu Qingyuan said, "He could speak with me calmly and without getting mad for a whole shishan." Xiāng Qinghua reacted terrified, "Ya, heavens! That's so strange. That really is very strange." Ordinarily speaking, there was an impassable knot tied between these two. Without dissolving this knot, there was absolutely no chance of them having harmonious relations. Before, it was the rule that they would absolutely separate on bad terms by the 5th sentence as the normal state of things. A whole shishan's worth of tranquil and anger-free exchange. This was more than a fantastic level of progress. Lu Qingge said, "In the Lingzi caves, he helped me." Xiāng Qinghua finally remembered. Right, at this time, Lu Qingge should already have been helped to death by Shen Qingkai. How could he still leap and frisk about, sitting here to attend a meeting? Could it have been that after defeating the well creature, the reminder he had given Shen Qingkai had taken effect? The others continued to summarize Shen Qingkai's different kind of oddity in the last few days. Why would he himself sustain injury beating back an ungrateful demoness from the demon race? Why would he stand up and protect his disciples to show concern and care? Hearing this, Xiāng Qinghua's face began to twitch. He thought it over front and back. This type of altruistic self-sacrificing character design, no matter how you looked at it, it was seriously OOC. He couldn't resist saying, "Stop." His body couldn't have been possessed, right? Wei Shixing, how is your sword testing station, did he visit? At Wei King Gui's Wangjian Peak Sword Testing Station, there was a mystical sword called Hongjing, which no person had ever been able to draw. As long as something like a resentful soul or evil spirit approached, the sword would unsheath by itself. If Shen Qingkai really had been possessed by some malevolent creature, as long as he approached the sword testing station, Hongjing would definitely sound a major alarm. But, Wei King Gui said, he went 3 times and tried to draw it 3 times. There was absolutely no sign of reaction. There is no demonic energy on his body, Yu Qingyuan said slowly. I could not detect any signs that his body has been possessed. Qi Qingkai spread her hands and said, if his body had been possessed, that wouldn't make any sense at all. There is always some sort of conspiracy behind body possession. These days, he has not been doing anything. He was even more idle than before. After a session of discussion, they were still unable to reach a conclusion. In the end, Mu Qingfang said, it is not necessarily a case of body possession. In my opinion, maybe Shen Shixing's old problem has reappeared. All the peak lords looked at each other in dismay. What this old problem was, it did not need to be said. Everyone understood. Shen Qingkai, as a person, was ambitious and aggressive, proud and arrogant. This would not be the first time he tried to achieve instant success. Maybe he went to cultivate in secret again, and ended up suffering a chi deviation. Mu Qingfang continued to analyze. I have heard of quite a few cases that when a person is hit on the head with a large rock, or perhaps suffers a violent irritant, sometimes they will lose a few of their past memories. So, to suffer a chi deviation and forget the past, making one's temperament undergo major changes, is not necessarily an impossibility. Yu Qingyuan said, then, is it possible to recover? Qi Qingqi wrinkled her nose. Zhangman Shixing, could it be that you still wish he would recover his previous character and conduct? Yu Qingyuan started. Me? I also do not know. He said earnestly, even though how he is now, is also very good, but if he can remember things himself, it is better if he does. Some of the other peak lords did not understand. Before, he would never give a proper greeting when he met Zhangman Shixing and our other comrades. He would not pay visits at our homes. When he spoke it was always a needle concealed in silk floss, a weird temperament of hot and cold. What was good about it? The way he is now is quite a bit better. Yu Qingyuan smiled faintly but did not speak further. Mu Qingfang said awkwardly, the last time I went to write his prescription for without a cure, I also examined for this while I was there. There were no signs of anything major and making him recall things is difficult to begin with. I am afraid we can only let nature take its course. After achieving the verdict of the Qingjing Peak Lord has lost his memory, celebrate and spread the joyful news, the meeting was adjourned. After this meeting had concluded, Xiāng Qinghua felt, in response to these strange happenings that he was very much obligated to, in passing while delivering Qingjing Peak's funds, investigate a bit. Before his investigation, the first place Xiāng Qinghua went was Baijian Peak. Normally speaking, each peak of Qingkaiang Mountain was ranked by seniority, Qingjing Peak was number 2, and Baijian Peak was number 7. After he made his deliveries to the first-ranked Kayangding Peak, the next should be Qingjing Peak according to the order. But on one hand, Shen Qingkai was too hard to please and every time Xiāng Qinghua had to rack his brains to figure out how to speak so as not to offend him, and on the other, Baijian Peak was good at fighting, and Xiāng Qinghua felt rather secure giving them their funds first. What type of security? Precisely the security of a self-employed small shop owner handing over his protection fee to the local gang lord. The one who met him was Lu Qing's Shidi, Jiju, who was as enthusiastic as always. The two exchanged a few greetings and after the handover was completed, Jiju said, Xiāng Shixing, take care, I'm returning to the practice grounds. Watching his expression, Xiāng Qinghua seemed like he didn't want to walk very fast himself. He asked, recently, Lu Shidi has often been staying on Baijian Peak. He had a sudden breakthrough in his cultivation. Lu Qingge was outside looking for people to fight all year round, no one on Baijian Peak was a match for him. At most, he would come back once a month. And when Baijian Peak flocked over to Xiāng Peak to seek treatment, that would be just after he returned. Recently though, Xiāng Peak's thresholds were almost trampled by those uncles from Baijian Peak and their funds were hard-pressed. Mu Qingfang came to look for Shang Qinghua every few days to ask for loans. He felt it was very strange. He wondered if some new extraordinary genius appeared on Baijian Peak who could stand up to Lu Qingge, so he asked this question. Ji Zhu said gloomily, "It's not from our peak. It's Shen Qingqiu." Shang Qinghua was entirely not counting on hearing some earth-shattering response, so he smiled and nodded. "Oh, Shen Qingqiu, ah. Shen Qingqiu." Digesting the enormous amount of information contained in those 3 characters, Shang Qinghua was almost startled into ascending on the spot. Shen Qingqiu? At Baijian Peak? And at the Baijian practice grounds? Doing what? Getting one-sidedly beaten up by Lu Qingge? No, according to his skill in drawing hatred, it should be a group beating. What if it was fatal? He's an important scum villain, ah. If he was beaten to death, to whom would Bing Ger be sent to be oppressed? Ji Zhu. Shang Shixing, what's that look in your eye? Don't look at me like that, we didn't kill anyone. Shen Qingqiu is still alive, no one did anything to him. You should be asking what he did to us. So, Shang Qinghua jogged with him all the way to the practice grounds. On the high platform, Lu Qingge and Shen Qingqiu were actually really just peacefully sparring with swords. Lu Qingge's movements were much slower than usual. Rather than calling it crossing swords, might as well call it feeding strikes. The space between his brows was still rather smooth and calm, with none of his former murderous spirit. Just then, Shen Qingqiu's sword struck air and he knit his brow, his left hand slightly moving. Shang Qinghua's heart suddenly stretched taut, glancing at Ji Zhu out of the corner of his eye to see his expression also flash cold, like he had an urge to shout out loud. The two glanced at each other, a flash of wordless understanding. Ji Zhu, his heart still holding lingering palpitations, spoke in a low voice. I always feel like Shen Qingqiu is about to deploy a concealed weapon dipped in poison or something. Shang Qinghua expressed his deep concurrence. Heroes think alike. It looks like Ji Shidi understood this character very thoroughly. None other than the one who once got into a fight with Shen Qingqiu at a brothel, old enemies who completely lost face on behalf of 2 peaks. Shen Qingqiu drew back Xiuye, stopping to think. First, he didn't let out a rustling sneer, second, he didn't look askance at anyone. Looking at him this way, he had a mild brow and peaceful gaze but still carried a modest air of elegant nobility. Soon after, Shen Qingqiu said, I don't understand. Lu Qingge flicked a swift and fierce flourish with his sword. Don't understand what? A disciple by Ji Zhu's side suddenly muttered, Heavens, he doesn't understand again. Another disciple said in a low voice, I can't anymore, my stomach feels unwell, I'm going back. Ji Zhu said hurriedly, Shidi, wait for me too. His Shidi pushed him back. Stay. Didn't you just return? On the platform, Shen Qingqiu said, just then, with those few moves, if I blocked your sword with my right hand and struck a sudden attack with spiritual energy in my left hand, taking the opportunity to strike your stomach, that would have been an opportunity to win. Lu Qingge scoffed. Not possible. Shen Qingqiu persisted. It's possible. Lu Qingge, if you could win, why didn't you try it? Shen Qingqiu said, aloof, aren't we just comparing notes? Attacking for real would be out of line. Lu Qingge didn't bother to reply and yelled at the crowd below the platform. Someone come up. The person he selected was like the hero Yi Shui, with a facial expression that said he viewed death as returning home as he ascended the platform. They traded a few blows with Lu Qingge with the method Shen Qingshu had selected, and was blown straight off the platform by the Chengluan sword. Lu Qingge finally sheathed his sword again and said to Shen Qingshu, "Did you see that? It won't work." Shen Qingshu spread his fan, waving it in front of his chest. He said, smiling, "I see. Lu Shidi's reflexes are too fast. It wouldn't work after all." Jiju quietly complained to Xiāng Tóngxiù, "Every time he says I don't understand, Lu Shixiang grabs someone to demonstrate, until he understands." No wonder the injuries at Baizhan Peak only increased these past few days, and Qiancao Peak's front courtyard was as busy as a marketplace. Xiāng Tóngxiù only had one thought to this. Shen Qingshu has to be doing it on purpose. After he descended the platform, Lu Qingge continued to train, beat up, the Baizhan Peak disciples. Shen Qingshu and Xiāng Tóngxiù exchanged greetings and walked down the mountain path together. Just as they were about to exit the gate, Jiju came, carrying 2 sacks to give to Shen Qingshu and Xiāng Tóngxiù. Xiāng Tóngxiù didn't understand, so he undid the tie to take a look. He saw 2 balls of bloody, hairy things nestled inside. "This is..." Jiju said with stiff expression. Lu Shixiang caught these short-haired monsters. Apparently, their flavor is very good. May the 2 Shixiang take them back to your own peaks to cook in accordance to your preference. Short-haired monster. Short-haired monster? He never created this sort of creature? It's edible? Are you sure? Looks like Shen Qingshu was also very suspicious of whether this thing was really edible. "Thanks for your trouble." Jiju recited woodenly. Shixiang said, "This is a return gift for the tea leaves Qingjing Peak sent last time." Tea leaves? He was sending tea leaves. What is this? Trading presents back and forth. Xiāng Tóngxiù yelled crap within his mind while maintaining a smile on his face. "That's to say, I caught a bit of Shen Shixiang's light. I don't know what type of high-quality tea leaves these were." Shen Qingshu said affably, "They were harvested from my head disciple Ming Fan's family's tea fields. As for whether they're high quality or not, won't Shangshidi know if he comes to take a meal at Qingjing Peak?" Xiāng Tóngxiù thickened his face and said, "Then I'll also catch a bit of Lu Shixiang's light as well." So, with each carrying a sack and talking about this and that, they walked towards Qingjing Peak. As soon as they entered the gate, serene wind brushed their faces, thin birdsong chittering away, entirely distinct from the outer world. The 2 walked over soft green fallen bamboo leaves covering the ground, the atmosphere several times more refreshing. For some reason, Shen Qingshu's mood was quite good. Looking at him, he didn't look the least bit like he just lost to Lu Qingge but instead lazily praised, "Lu Shidi's swordsmanship really is not bad." Xiāng Tóngxiù couldn't resist reminding him, "Shen Shixiang you lost a few times." Shen Qingshu thought it over. N? Are you asking about this morning? It was only 7 or 8 times. Then how can you be this calm? Shouldn't you be gnashing your teeth in fury, raindrops on a pear blossom, cuckoo crying blood, swinging your hands to go back into seclusion for 3 months, swearing to duel him again? Don't you know you're being OOC? Can't you respect my work a bit more?" Shen Qingshu used the handle of his fan to tap his nape. "Losing to the Baizhan Peak Lord, there's nothing you can do. You might as well say winning would be the unusual occurrence." Xiāng Tóngxiù felt there was no way to keep conversing with him. He's lost his memory. He definitely cultivated into qi deviation and lost his memory. For this scene of friendly elder and respectful younger, harmonious fraternal love between comrades to appear between Shen Qingshu and Lu Qingge, oh heavens, maybe in a few days Shen Qingshu and Luo Binghe would be able to strike up some flirtatious banter. Just after this frightful scene flashed through his mind, a white shadow darted over. Something sticky suddenly threw itself into Shen Qingshu's arms. That softened lump called out, "Shizun!" Shen Qingshu was nearly knocked over face up. Tilting and grabbing onto a thick bamboo stalk, he finally steadied his footing, seeing Xiāng Tóngxiù detachedly observing the scene without an expression on his face. You can't fault Xiāng Tóngxiù for his expression freezing up. Seeing that little lady killer embryo, his pair of arms encircling Xiāng Tóngxiù's waist like steel hoops, a call of Binggur nearly escaped Xiāng Tóngxiù's mouth. Xiāng Tóngxiù stiffly waved his fan with one hand, completely unaffected. If you're going to call, then call, don't drag out your voice and call. Throwing yourself at people all day, your shishu is still here. What decorum is this? Luo Binghe slowly pulled back his hands and stood up straight. He obediently first called Shang Shishu, then said, after this disciple finished morning lessons, I have been waiting here for Shizun to return. I forgot myself in a moment of excitement. Airplane shooting towards the sky. Juju's heart nearly crumbled. Luo Binghe switched to cradling Xiāng Tóngxiù's arm. Shizun, why were you out for so long today? There were a lot of people today. Looking at Xiāng Tóngxiù's leisurely and contented smile, Xiāng Tóngxiù couldn't resist guessing how many times he didn't understand today, and how many times he had Lu Qingge demonstrated for him. Luo Binghe automatically took the sack out of Xiāng Tóngxiù's hands. Next time, can I go, too? That depends on your progress in your sword skills. Xiāng Tóngxiù said casually. There is some sort of monster in the sack, your Lu Shishu said it's edible. See if you can clean off the hair and figure out how to cook it. You're turning Binggur into a kitchen maid. Only the female protagonists are allowed to eat the male protagonist's cooking. Can't you keep to your place or forget it? Xiāng Tóngxiù didn't have the energy. Oh. Luo Binghe happily agreed. Shaking the sack, the thing inside suddenly began to struggle. Shizun, it's still alive. When they arrived at the receiving hall of the bamboo house, Xiāng Tóngxiù's flock of disciples were still surrounding that mysterious creature, taking turns to poke at the sack. With each poke, that short-haired monster let out a plaintive cry, making team delighted each time as they clucked their tongues in wonder. Shizun, it really is still alive. What do we do if it's still alive? Still kill and eat it. Let's not, it's so pitiful. Xiāng Tóngxiù forcibly ignored this flock of young disciples sitting all over the ground, lowering his head to drink his tea, his heart twitching. He remembered the last time he came, every disciple had a face full of great bitterness and deep hatred, standing like pines or sitting like clocks, ancient texts in hand, reciting wherever they went like they were chanting curses, quoting chapter and verses when they spoke, a musical cadence in their voices. Seeing them today, was this still that renowned Qingjing Peak which produced countless youths full of pretentious literary airs? This whole place was a trusteeship for ADHD children. Xiāng Tóngxiù said, if it's still alive, then keep it as a pet. Ming Fan hurriedly retorted, let's eat it, let's just eat it. We've never kept one before. We don't know how much it needs to eat, and changing its water and taking it out for walks and whatnot is very troublesome. Ning Yingying pouted. That's enough. If we keep it, it definitely won't be you taking care of it. Shizun would obviously give it to Aluo to keep. She lifted her head and asked, Shizun, where did you get this strange thing? The Baijian Peak Lord gave it to me. A return gift for the tea. Hearing this, Ning Yingying whined, Shizun, I don't like Baijian Peak. They're so annoying. Last time they came wielding swords to bully Aluo, they were chasing and beating him. Xiāng Tóngxiù thought, this is quite normal. Baijian Peak's ubiquitous malice towards Luo Binghe was entirely natural. This was a type of intuitive reaction of single-celled organisms towards those with an element of hidden wicked potential. This really wasn't hating on Baijian Peak. Xiāng Tóngxiù was a fan himself. After enumerating their shortcomings, Ning Yingying requested, Shizun, you have to help us teach them a good lesson. Pu Xiāng Tóngxiù choked once, turned towards Xiāng Tóngxiù and then smiled politely. Hi, these kids, what are they going on about? There ought to be harmony and familial affection between comrades, how could I teach them a good lesson at will? Xiāng Tóngxiù repeatedly stated his agreement, returning the same type of forced smile, drinking tea like his life depended on it. Sister Ying your Shizun doesn't need to make a move, Lu Qingge has already taught them quite a cruel lesson. In fact, Shen Qingqiu is in charge of the harmony and familial affection, Lu Qingge is in charge of the teaching them a good lesson, precisely the true nature of a hypocrite. Xiāng Qinghua felt deeply gratified. Even after going through a qi deviation and losing his memory, Shen Qingqiu was sure enough still that treacherous Shen Qingqiu. Right at this time, Luo Binghe had fetched the tea leaves, entering the living room to present them to Xiāng Qinghua. Shen Qingqiu said, "Come, Shidi, we have been indebted to Nding Peak's care for a long time now." The one on the floor was still unwilling to overlook or spare. Ning Yingying spoke with passion, "Shizun, you have to avenge Luo this time." Shen Qingqiu was at the end of his patience. "Yingying, go play outside." Luo Binghe hurriedly retorted, "You must not avenge me or whatever. It's just this disciple's skill is inferior to theirs, and I lost face for Shizun and Qingjing Peak." Shen Qingqiu comforted, "It's just that your foundation isn't very good and you are lacking for the time being. As long as you are diligent, given some time, you can definitely surpass them." Ming Fan scoffed. To surpass Baijian Peak, for him, it would take 100 years. Ning Yingying flew into a temper. "You look down on us Qingjing Peak and look down on Luo so much. Why don't you just go to Baijian Peak and see if they'll take you?" Shen Qingqiu put his head in his hands. "Didn't I tell you to go outside and play? Why are you still here? Binghe, get them outside quick. Don't make an exhibition of yourselves here." "Okay, Shizun. But, as for this thing, are we eating it or keeping it?" Xiāng Qinghua felt like he was going to have a heart attack. This Shen Qingqiu was a red candle and gardener while Luo Binghe was a close little jacket. What the hell is this? Don't fucking tell me that Shen Qingqiu really did go to Baijian Peak and mess with them just to avenge Luo Binghe. This benevolent father, filial son. Pay. 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 Lifting the tray to eyebrow level. Pay. 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 Treating the other as an honored guest. This was even more fantastical than Shen Qingqiu and Lu Qingge harmoniously comparing notes. If it kept going on like this, maybe there really would be a day when they would exchange flirtatious banter. After Airplane Juju finished swearing, he had a rare moment of careful thought. He had never used Chenjiao quite properly, and he brought out the limited supply he knew to describe Lu Mingjian's good looks. The ones he used with the highest frequency were soft bosoms trembling and could be knocked over with a breath. To use treating the other as an honored guest should be correct here, right? Looking at the literal meaning, it should be correct. At that time, Airplane shooting towards the sky Juju who was assiduously struggling for his existence still did not know that the scum villain Shen Qingqiu had already been replaced by his unmatched hater Peerless Cucumber. To think that in those days, now and again when this lord's hate was excessively ferocious, he would casually curse him and maliciously pray that no matter how peerless his cucumber was, may he never get a chance to use it all his life. Who could have expected that in some sort of way, this curse had been fulfilled? These days, Bing Ge's mood was especially bad. Xiāng Qinghua could understand. As the stallion protagonist who could turn the sky by himself in the original work, now he had gotten Shen Qingqiu and imprisoned him really, just imprisoned him. All he did was imprison him and nothing else. Can you believe it? As the original author, even he didn't dare to believe it. If the current Bing Ge could still be controlled by his pen, based on the principle of satisfying the protagonist is satisfying the readers, he would definitely have Luo Binghe defile Shen Qingqiu hundreds of times over and over like frying flat bread. There were definitely none of his personal grievances with Peerless Cucumber here. Definitely not. The props, position, and location need not be the same. It'll be easier to say once it's fried through, of course feelings will arise as you're frying. End chapter.